In May 2020, China aggressively moved 2 infantry divisions across the line of actual control along Ladakh. Now, Beijing tore up multiple agreements it had made with India over decades to maintain peace and tranquility along the LAC. Now, the Chinese move resulted in clashes with Indian soldiers and the first loss of life along the LAC in over 4 decades. Now, over the past 4.5 years, India and China have been involved in a Himalayan standoff. It's the largest of its kind in human history. Over 100,000 soldiers facing each other off at altitudes of over 3,000 meters above sea level. Now, India has held its ground since then. It hasn't backed down. And it's said, New Delhi has said that normalization of relations cannot happen without China going back to pre-May 2020 positions. Well, that seems to have happened now with both India and China disengaging from the face-off points along the LAC. This is a landmark announcement by the Foreign Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar. In fact, there's now talk of a Modi-Xi Jinping one-on-one meeting in Kazan at the BRICS Summit, at the sidelines of the BRICS Summit, in fact. This could possibly be their first one-on-one meeting since 2019. The questions we're asking today on the News9 Plus show are, the LAC is the biggest flashpoint between India and China, two of the world's largest economies. Will this disengagement now lead to de-escalation and demilitarization? Question number 2, will there be a return to a status quo ante, as India has emphasized over the last 4 years? Question number 3, what does India need to do to ensure China doesn't break agreements again? Is there more to this move? That's question number 4. Is there more to this move than meets the eye? And as the Army Chief, General Dwivedi, just said, how do you rebuild trust with China? Joining me on the News9 Plus show today are Lieutenant General Rakesh Sharma, who's formerly commanded the 14 Corps in Ladakh, Ambassador Jain Dasgupta, and my colleague, TV9's international editor, R. Sridharan, in the studio here with me. Gentlemen, welcome to the News9 Plus show. I first want to decode the terms of this disengagement with General Rakesh Sharma. General Sharma, have you managed to read the fine print of what the Foreign Minister just said? Dr. Jaishankar just said that both sides have completed their disengagement.
So, Sandeep, thank you for calling me, and let me answer it first by saying that the fine print is not clear. There have been 4 statements that have come out in the course of last 24 hours. The Foreign Secretary spoke, the External Affairs Minister spoke on the India Today conclave. Then the Chief has spoken recently, as you pointed out.
Yes.
And the Chinese have come out with a statement finally today. So, if you see all 4 statements, they are fine print is not there. Exactly what has been decided is not clear. And so we'll have to wait for that. However, certain things, the External Affairs Minister, when he spoke yesterday, and we must take him on face value, he's speaking to the world. And in his statement, he has made 2-3 very important points. And he said that disengagement process is completed.
Right.
Second, he said that disengagement to where the situation was in 2020. Third, that they have reached an agreement on patrolling. Now, if we must take it on the face value as what the External Affairs Minister has said, and it actually implies that there has been an agreement. Because the Chinese also said that a resolution on relevant matters has been received, and China will work with India to implement these resolutions.
Right.
Now, how much does it translate on ground? I think it is slightly premature to talk, because most probably they are waiting for this Kazan summit to happen, and if there is one-to-one between with the 2 principals takes place, then maybe some things will be clearer. But as it stands now, there is we take it that there is some progress on disengagement, which on 2 points that we know we are just still stuck on this one, and there is some kind of progress on patrolling.
Right.
Now, how does it translate? I'd love to see that.
Yeah, we'll have to see that indeed. But as you said, it's a big breakthrough indeed between India and China after the stalemate of over 4.5 years. It's probably one of the longest such stalemates that we've had. After 4.5 years, we're getting somewhere. Finally, both sides seem to have disengaged from those two potential flashpoints. And Ambassador Dasgupta, this was one of our main requirements of resuming dialogue with China, at least at the highest levels. Given the fact that the foreign minister just said that disengagement has now happened on both sides, do you see the prospect of a Prime Minister Modi, President Xi Jinping dialogue taking place on the sidelines of BRICS at Kazan?
Well, I don't think it has been scheduled yet, so it may take place. But this is a very carefully orchestrated action by China. They knew that Kazan was going to be there, and Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping would be there. So I think there was some intervention by President Putin also, because he wanted to make Kazan a success. So this is very carefully orchestrated by China. I entirely agree with General Sharma. But, the things which have taken place, there are, I think, and I stand to correction by General Sharma, there are 65 patrolling points, and more than 20 of them, we do not have the access any longer since 2020.
Right.
And to my knowledge, only Demchok and Depsang plains, I think just over 5 of these have been resolved, so to say, for patrolling purposes. Now, Daulat Beg Oldie remains out in the cold. So does the Finger area, the patrolling points 14, 15 and 17. So there are a whole lot of issues, and I hate to say this, but I think the Chinese are having all the cards in their favor, and they are, doling out one at a time, a small piece. But what they have succeeded since 2020, if I may say so,
yes,
is that they have pushed us beyond the buffer zone. They have occupied the buffer zone and made us retreat behind that.
Right.
So into our own area. And that all the cards are in the Chinese hands. So it is a welcome gesture. I appreciate that some progress has been made. We should work on it. But, there have been 21 Corps Commanders meetings and 31 working group on the WMCC.
Right.
And the Chinese gave in only when they wanted to and when they found that they could reap some benefit out of it.
Right. Sri, the ambassador was talking about this whole thing of trust but verify. When it comes to China, everyone's very, very cautious. Nobody wants to, make any sweeping statements, given how quickly the Chinese can go back on that. And, there's a saying about the Chinese that they have this policy of 2 steps forward and 1 step back. And then they, occupy the area that they claim to have vacated, which is not which we'll have to verify actually in this case. But, Sri, tell us, because you monitor the economy so closely, what's going on in China right now? Why is Xi Jinping really worried with the way the Chinese economy is shaping up or not shaping up?
So I think the biggest challenge which China is facing right now is basically the economic slowdown.
Yes.
You saw that the Bank of China cut interest rates yesterday. All in a bit to stimulate the economy, because Xi Jinping is really worried that this prosperity which his country has witnessed over the last 30 years, that is now suddenly dissipating.
Right.
There is unemployment rising among all the... Yes, 20%. Absolutely. And the hardest hit are the young workers.
Right.
So he's really worried about, and one of the reasons why China has been able to keep disquiet under the surface is because of the prosperity that it created for everyone.
Right.
Now, if that prosperity is taken away from people, and you have unemployment happening, and there's a housing crisis also that they're dealing with, if all this come together, could this result in some sort of a social, like another Tiananmen, but much worse than what happened then?
Absolutely, an
explosion. I think that is Xi Jinping's big worry, that he needs to keep the economic engine humming, so the people are not they don't start demanding for democracy, real democracy,
right.
and the ouster of the Communist Party.
Absolutely.
I think that's his big
compact
challenge.
that they made with the Chinese people post Tiananmen in 1989.
Yes.
We'll make you rich beyond your wildest imagination, but don't ask for democratic rights or anything of that sort. That could be unraveling, as you mentioned. The economy is slowing down. His troubles are mounting. But General Sharma, back to this point which Ambassador Dasgupta said, the fact that China has mastered this art of 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Do you think the same thing could be happening in Ladakh, and you need to look at it very carefully? The patrolling points, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and before you know it, they've occupied that buffer zone. And some more, that salami slicing strategy that you've so famously written about in the past.
See, Sandeep, we have been bitten. And what has happened, unfortunately, it didn't happen in 2020, it was happening 6-7 years earlier also. But we have been bitten so hard that though the word trust has been used by the chief, and the chief has also used the word buffers, there is a little time it will take for developing that trust. Because, we have been surprised often in our lives. Kargil happened, and 2020 happened, and previously 2013 happened, and Doklam happened. So to say that a trust can be developed over a period of in a short while by some resolutions is not simple. It will take a little time. But having said that, let's take it in a right spirit. I am not very sure whether the buffers will be there or will not be there. But if the patrolling is commencing, that patrolling implies that there is a chance of our going back into the Depsang Plateau. If they allow us to go back to the Depsang Plateau, which is what they were denying us, that will be a step forward. There we have a toehold or a foothold on the Oxygen Plateau as such. Otherwise, the present situation was that we were denied the opportunity, and the entire Oxygen was now being occupied by the Chinese. So that's a major change in case the patrolling is permitted. And I'll hasten to add one small issue.
Yes.
See, there are 65 patrolling points there, of which that SP of Leh had spoken about 26. Which even then I wrote and I spoke also that it is a gross exaggeration. At one time we could count all 65 and said, that's not true. I'm not naming how many. I can often make a guess, but I'm not saying so. But even if we are able to start the process of resolution in some manner, and then we still hold on to our the posture there so that we are not surprised in case something happens, well, that will be a step forward. So I think in any case, it's a positive thing, and let's for the time being take it positively.
Right. Let's take it positively, at least for the time being. But, and I think the most important thing you mentioned there, General Sharma, is that proof of the pudding lies on the Depsang Plateau, and the fact that if our soldiers can go back onto the Depsang Plateau and continue to patrol as they were pre-2020, then that is a very, very significant step forward indeed, and that would have come out just before the BRICS summit.
But to my mind, Sandeep, we must not forget what was behind the clashes that happened, really. It was the fact that there was infrastructure build-up, roads being laid. It was the fact that permanent military, infrastructure was being built. Now, does this take care of any of those issues? It doesn't.
It doesn't. It all remains as it is, and in fact...
exactly. So we still haven't addressed the fundamental issues.
The core issue, which was the massive Chinese infrastructure build-up on the plateau. But that, as past studies have shown, Sri, that this is how the Chinese operate on all the disputed regions that they have. They have trouble with all their neighbors. They're the country with the maximum number of borders, and they have trouble with all their neighbors. What they do is they first build up the infrastructure. They're very calm, they're very quiet, and they're very peaceful. They build up the infrastructure. Once the infrastructure is built, lo and behold, they're at your doorstep. And there's a new China that presents itself, and which is something what we had to face 4.5 years back, and which we hope we can hold them at that and not allow them to come further in, as they've been doing over the last couple of years. Creeping acquisition, salami slicing. There are all these wonderful cooking related terms when it comes to China, Chinese cuisine, I guess. But Ambassador Dasgupta, what is it that India really needs to do now? There's a trust deficit that's been broken with the Chinese. The army chief has referred to that. General Sharma has referred to that as well. The fact that you had an agreement with the Chinese where you had in 1993, when Prime Minister Narasimha Rao traveled to Beijing, and you came up with this landmark agreement for the agreement to maintain peace and tranquility along the LAC. Let's keep the LAC on the back burner. Let's move with the rest of the relationship as it did, and the Chinese are today our largest trading partner, and we've got this massive trade deficit with them. But that's a story we'll come to in the next segment. But tell us what we can really do now in 2024 when you have a rising China, a rising India, and both of them coming in confrontations along the LAC. What can we do to alleviate this climate of mistrust which the Chinese actions have created in the last 4 years?
That's a very important question. I don't think we can do much, because the Chinese they are not very open and straightforward and transparent. Yes. They may be offering the olive branch, but they have built up their infrastructure. They have built a bridge across the Pangong Lake, and they are strengthening themselves. So I think what we need to do is to redouble our efforts to strengthen all along the LAC, especially in Ladakh.
Right.
And also station, our armor, our artillery, our aircraft, etc., as close to the border as possible, and use the abilities of the US, for instance, of satellite tracking, etc., intel sharing, to shame the Chinese that this is what you are doing.
Right.
You are bringing in, aircraft very close to the border so that they can make, sorties across the border very easily from Ladakh. Now, that is the kind of thing. It is the trust. I don't think I agree entirely with General Sharma that trust can't be built in one day. And when the other, country has a long history of being untrustworthy and devious, we just can't, drop our guard even for one moment.
We can't drop our guard, indeed.
That we can, have joint patrolling and all that, and let us try to de-escalate if that is possible. But we can't let down our guard even for 1 second.
We can't let down our guard even for 1 second when it comes to the Chinese.
I think to understand China, to understand this whole issue of trust, Sandeep, we have to step back and look at China in context of what's happening and its behavior with other countries.
Right.
It's not just about India.
Yes.
Right. What it's doing in South China Sea.
That's right.
Its repeated threats to Taiwan.
Right.
So this is about China, which is asserting its place,
Yes.
in the world at large.
Right.
So India is one small theater where, it's trying to assert itself. Right. But the larger game plan that China has, it's like China telling itself, hey, I'm the second largest economy in the world.
Right.
I have built myself, militarily. I'm a nuclear armed country.
Yes.
I think I deserve a bigger, play in global matters.
Right.
And that also links back to BRICS. I'm sure we'll talk about it a little later.
Absolutely, in the next segment.
I don't think we can really trust China on this issue at all, because they have no incentive to step back from their larger goal, which is to become a global dominant force.
And as Ambassador Dasgupta said, they're holding all the cards and they're dishing them out one after the other. But General Sharma, we've discussed this in the past as well. The 3 Ds, as in D for Delta, along the LAC, we seem to have achieved disengagement. We are looking at de-escalation, and the third D is demilitarization. Now, this I would think would largely be the scenario along the LAC pre-May 2020, when the Chinese broke all of these agreements that we had carefully crafted over the last 30, 40 years. And they first militarized, then they escalated, and then they engaged. Now, to roll this back, this 3-2-1, they did 1-2-3. How do you take it back to 3-2-1 now?
I won't even hope for it. I don't think it will happen.
Right.
What happens is that the transformation in the areas in the proximity of the line of actual control in last 4 years is total. It is so much that, when you start imagining all the runways have been increased to 5,000 meters.
Yes.
There are underground blast fence made, ammunition dumps made, the roads, new roads coming up. The road coming up in Excitation, G695 is only 15 kilometers from the LAC, and it goes, and you remember you saw the bridges across Pagongso being constructed.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
the fiber optic cables, there are oil pipelines,
permanent infrastructure,
railway lines being built. There is
Yes.
a transformative arrangement out here. You just cannot say that they will lift up their divisions or whatever they have there and send them
Yes.
back to Taklamakan Desert or to Urumqi or to Kasgar. I think that's very far away. We should take one baby steps at a time. This is a step taken.
Right.
Let's think how we're going to move ahead on these issues and then come back. And I'll add one more, if you allow me, Sandeep.
Yes, Demchok.
Now the point is, when the economic survey came in the first week of July,
yes,
there was a clear, and was placed by the finance minister in the parliament, clearly stated that we need to allow Chinese to do FDI in India.
Yes.
That should have been the first inkling that there is something happening on the
yes.
LAC, because these two things were together.
They're connected, yes.
Connected. Now, subsequently, it's absolutely clear that the manufacturing powerhouse of the world, the second largest economy, yes. and the supply chains that they hold across the world, it's very difficult to de-link. I won't even say de-risking also. Nothing is
yes.
Easy to be done, and we have to subsist with the Chinese economy, and that has to be taken into cognizance in our developmental process towards $5 trillion or
yes.
$10 trillion economy.
Yes.
We just cannot de-link it.
Right.
There is where the issue is Viksit Bharat
yes.
and Surakshit Bharat.
Yes.
They both have to run in parallel lines.
Absolutely. Viksit Bharat and Surakshit Bharat, a very interesting analogy there, Sri, the fact that these two go hand in hand. But you know, this point that General Sharma made about the demilitarization being, a far cry, and the Chinese infrastructure indeed points to that. It's about staying and it's not about leaving.
Absolutely. The forward troops which are there, I mean, the first easiest thing you can do is pull them back, right?
Yes.
But even that's not done. 2017 Doklam happened
yes.
when we already there was no border dispute.
Yes.
It was a settled boundary.
Right.
We had a fight again, from China on that.
In a sector which
they call Arunachal Pradesh
settled.
South
yes.
Tibet.
Right.
I mean, they have problem if Indian, president visits Arunachal Pradesh.
Yes.
So I think to expect that China is actually serious about any kind
yes.
of long-term border settlement issue with India, I think that's
right.
not happening. I think, as General Sharma said, I think our best hope is
yes.
to recognize that, like you said, Surakshit Bharat and Viksit Bharat.
Yes.
And I think this government is doing a fantastic job on
yes.
balancing both these issues. We are not being unduly aggressive towards,
yes.
China, right? We are protecting our economy, our borders as
yes.
much as possible, but we realize that we need to work with China because given the size of the economy and its importance, the
yes.
global supply chain, you can't do without China.
Right. Very pragmatic policy.
Absolutely.
I think that's what this government, the hallmark of this government has been, is it pragmatism, that, it's when it comes to
Absolutely.
India's national interests, that is supreme. Everything else can wait. But thank you very much for joining us this evening, General Sharma, to enlighten us on this, what we believe is a thaw between India and China, and of course that will be manifested by, as you said, if Indian troops are able to patrol on the Demchok plateau, as we believe they will in the next couple of days. But the big story here that everyone across the world will be tracking possibly is the possibility of a one-on-one meeting between President Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Narendra Modi on the sidelines of the Kazan BRICS summit. But thank you very much for joining us, General Sharma, and Ambassador Dasgupta and my colleague Sridhar continue to join me in the studio. News9 Plus has had the most comprehensive coverage on the India-China standoff, especially when it comes to the infrastructure build-up along the line of actual control. We've had stories like hot pursuit, border riposte, the race to the border, tunnel to Tawang, and finally manning the heights. Now, India and China have agreed to resume patrolling to the agreed perceived line of actual control, including in two areas, the Demchok plains and in Demchok. So there's unlikely to be any immediate thinning down of troops other than those pulled back in the winter as the norm. Our journalist Nivriti Mohan is one of the very few reporters who's actually traveled down to one of these flashpoints at Demchok, and this is what she had reported.
We are on our way to Demchok, and Demchok is the first village of India. Welcome to Demchok. So we are in Demchok right now. So you can see our forces here. They are guarding our borders. right on this mountain on the top is the India's observation post, and on the other side is China. So they are continuously watching us, and we are also continuously watching them. We are one of the first media houses to reach up to this place. Behind me is the Demchok village, which is first village of India, just 400 to 500 meters away from the line of actual control. It is on the line of actual control, and on the other side you can see a village which is called Demchok village, and you can see Chinese flags flying over the village. And we have reached up to this place, and we are just 400 to 500 meters away from China right now on the Indian land in the first village of India.